Welcome to the First State Kopites podcast. It's episode 21 of season 3. This is a podcast for Liverpool supporters in Delaware and friends of those Liverpool supporters in Delaware. Thanks for listening on your preferred platform. We're available on all of them and YouTube as well. We are delighted today to be joined by Mari Lewis. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. And she's going to tell us, hopefully, a bit about her support for the Reds. I'm not quite sure how else to describe this because it's what Daz has put in the agenda, but apparently your bullshit is really good and we want to talk a little bit about that. So also joined today by Daz, Baltimore. Justin is in New York and Haitham is in a snowy Chicago. Yes, no, could be snowy.
Yes, what the hell was that?
Yes. We got our first snow yesterday, and I'm not happy. And you know, the game happened and all of that stuff. So yesterday was not a good day.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk about the game, unfortunately. So today is December 29th. We're recording this day after Liverpool went to Leicester, and unfortunately lost by, I think, Leicester's only shot on target in the game. And somehow we couldn't make more of our 21 shots on goal. Okay. But we're going to start with Mari, and feel free to join in, everyone else. But let's start with, how did you become a Liverpool fan?
Okay. Well, first, thank you for having me. As for how did I become a Liverpool fan, I don't have a good story. I honestly might just start telling people Istanbul, but it's not true. It's more of you need to have a team, and I have terrible memory of when I was young as well. So I picked a team. I don't remember the reasons. I know the continued reasons, sort of what stood out for me, what still stands out for me. I've always really identified with a lot of the city of Liverpool. And I do find a lot of the values in the club to be really attractive. But there wasn't any sort of fit moment, just like my father's an Arsenal fan. And when all of my sort of club soccer teammates were getting kits when we were visiting England, he would not buy me a Chelsea kit, which is what a lot of people were buying. And I had no interest in Manchester United because where I grew up, it was either people were really interested in Mexican teams or Manchester United, and I am inherently contrary, so that was never going to be a thing. But yeah, don't have a good story. I need to come up with one. But it's just been sort of now a long-term love affair with the Reds that is continuing, I suppose.
We'll call it divine providence.
There, yeah, go ahead.
Where'd you grow up, Mari? Sorry.
I'm from Southern California originally.
So I went to school. Cal State
Nice.
Fullerton.
Nice.
Sounds so I did have a question about observation. I think basing stuff on values, that's a story in itself. I think that's pretty awesome. I think I've become my wife has no interest in football, but she thinks Jurgen Klopp is one of the finest human beings on the planet, and it's all about values, which I really enjoy. So I think are you in Liverpool right now? Have you been?
I am, yeah. My lovely Airbnb is in the background here.
Okay. So how's the trip back to Anfield been?
The trip itself has been a problem, but if I want to dwell on the positives thus far, I was very lucky enough to be at the Leicester win at Anfield. Okay. Which was easily one of the best live sporting events I've ever been to. I'm quite lucky this time around, full stop, where I kind of have tickets to every home game, at least in December. I'm relatively hopeful about January. I have a mate who very helpfully, if he doesn't come out, he'll message me and ask me if I want to go to a game, and if I'm in town, I do. We'll see about Brentford, but so that side of things has been nice. Usually when I'm here, I only get to see 1 or 2 matches, if that. And I'm lucky that I am here during loads of home matches. I think we also very often will play away in the cup. So while I've been here and watched us play in League Cup and FA Cup matches in December and January, usually they're away. So I just watch it in a pub with my with my partner. So that's been nice. As for the actual travel, it's been horrific, but it is what it is.
And is that about COVID or just
Well, I managed to lose my passport, and I managed to break my engagement ring all in 1 week. And to replace my passport to go home, I apparently need to go to London for an appointment in person to do that, which I've never lost a passport before. So this is all new and fun. But there aren't any available appointments in London, so I can't actually plan that. I just have to keep sort of refreshing their little appointment page and hope. Or it'll get into the point where it's 5 days before I travel, and then I can get an emergency appointment, which just seems like a very stressful way to go about things organizationally, but we are where we are.
Well, now that you're back home, and you've been to Anfield, which I'm sure most of us are somewhat jealous about, because I know that as a group, actually, that most of the people in this podcast had planned on trying to go back early this year, right around Justin's birthday, which is the 3rd. Is that correct, Justin?
My birthday is in fact Monday.
Yeah.
So, how's, in terms of, I guess, it's unbelievable to see everyone back in a stadium, because you having seen it empty, it was just soulless. I guess what I want to ask is, like, how's the mood around COVID? Is it one of those things that people just really are just swerving talking about, and just trying to get on with it, or is it like it's come up in conversation?
It varies a lot. I think I don't think anyone truly thinks going to match is not a COVID risk. But the people wearing masks inside are the drastic minority. I did wear a mask the entire time I was there this past Wednesday, just because even though I had been testing negative, I had a small risk of maybe in that hour turning to positive, which I didn't, thankfully. And around me, a couple people were in masks, but most people weren't. And I know multiple times on the way in, there is a sort of plan B thing in place where you're meant to go in online at least 4 hours ahead of kickoff and upload a negative test or your vaccination status, which is all well and good, but I didn't do it on Wednesday, and because I just completely forgot. I had done it for the Newcastle match and it was easy enough, and nothing happened. And no one's been asked to show proof of anything there, so it's one of them, really. But at the same time, that's absolutely true of bars and restaurants and whatnot in town as well. It's not like it's just this one part of society that isn't doing it. And I know it varies loads in the US as well. Like where I'm from, it varies within the city, or where I'm from, where I'm living currently, it varies a lot within the city. But, you know, I just get a sense that people are tired of dealing with it and don't trust this particular government in the UK to be either doing anything about it or having a plan, I think, from the conversations that I have had. So it's a problem, I guess, but not one that anyone's really talking about.
That's what I find really interesting, because I mean, I'm coming from the guise of the fact that I live in New York City, which was the first place to actually institute any sort of vaccine mandate for going into restaurants and bars. And I get checked anytime I go into any place. And when you're going into a bar, it's nothing more than the same thing as like someone checking your ID. Now, I don't think it creates that much more of an inconvenience, especially also when you're going into a large event. Like I went to a Knicks game recently. They checked my vaccination status. It took all of 20 seconds, right? Show me a pass, show me an ID that lines up with it. I don't understand how they've made it so difficult every place to actually just institute just that simple other check, which really only should take 15 seconds. Because ultimately you're not sitting there and asking the person who's checking to sit there and validate, is the card real or not? If you have issues with people, faking statuses, that is a significantly larger conversation than just asking someone to say, at the turnstile, can we just see your vaccine card? Which I do think creates a significantly greater level of safety for everybody going there.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I have no power over any of this, but
None of us do.
In Liverpool right now, there is a massive issue within the hospitality industry, which that is where my fellow got COVID. He runs a bar in town called Pogues. And the day he tested positive, 4 of his staff members tested positive, and they catch it really quickly because everyone's testing pretty much every day if you're doing stuff where you're in and amongst loads of people. And what's grim about them, and I might mess this up, so don't fully trust me, but you have to isolate 7 days if you're vaccinated, even if you get a negative test before that time. You're not allowed to go into work, but you don't get paid really. For that week's work, he's going to make, I think, about £95 in government pay. And like, you can't work, you're not allowed to work. But if you're someone who's working week to week on your income, you can't afford to get COVID. And it's a bit of a mess. And it is absolutely rampant in hospitality at the minute. There are places that are going to be closing and whatnot, but there's no one's checking anything or doing anything. Masks aren't a thing here, really. I don't know. It's a bit. See, I thought we were going to have a grim conversation about match yesterday, but instead, just this COVID grim conversation. Here we are as well.
Yeah. So why don't we pivot then? Because that's a really great way of doing it. So you regularly tweet. Is Twitter your kind of preferred platform to get stuff out there?
Yeah. I mean, I have an Instagram as well, but I don't really use it for Liverpool related things. I just post pictures that I think are pretty. So yes.
So tell us what the handle people should go and look for is, and then tell us about how you got into doing some of the graphics that I've seen on your Twitter feed.
Yeah, sure. So I am just my full name on Twitter. So Mari C. Lewis, C is my middle initial. Is where you can find me, MARICLEWIS. And I just over tweet and I'm loud about the Reds often. And what you're referring to are my sort of commentator's notebook pages, is how I vaguely describe them. Everyone knows Tildesley's ones, and they are based off of that. I read an article in 442 about them like ages ago and kind of loosely started doing them a few years ago, but over time they've gotten better and better, basically. And my reason for doing them is I also write freelance. So right now I write for the Liverpool Offside, which is an American-based website about the Reds. It's more of a just short, some analytical, often just reporting news type of thing. But I started doing the commentator's notebook quite seriously when I stopped writing for Liverpool.com, which is the Liverpool Echo's sort of American facing site, is their underlying design. It's now one of my friends, Mo Stewart, actually, and people know the Anfield Wrap. He also contributes to the Anfield Wrap. He's now one of the editors there. It used to be Dan Austin, Dan Morgan, and Christian Walsh when I was working there. But once I stopped doing that, that was my in-depth stuff for the week, and I didn't have an outlet for it for a little bit. And I also noticed that one of the places where I did fall short as someone who's thinking and writing about Liverpool is in opposition knowledge, and that I was pretty confident in my knowledge of the Reds themselves, but I wasn't overly confident in terms of like both tactics and just other things about the teams that we were necessarily facing. At least on the same level. So I started doing the notebook for that reason. And because I just kind of like things to be pretty, I put too much effort in making it pretty, is the long and short of that.
And it is very pretty.
Thank you.
It is that, yes. So I guess we'll pivot a little bit then towards...
I actually have a question here quickly, right?
Sure.
You do make these things pretty, but do you have an inspiration to make your particular opposition guide pretty when we play against, say, Burnley, who are the exact opposite of anything that aesthetic?
I do tend to pick, so there is some shithousery involved, obviously. Burnley, I usually pick the ugliest badge I can find for theirs to draw. Everton usually gets the badge redesign that they don't like. I don't know why exactly they hated it, but there's one in I think it was 2016 where they just absolutely hated that redesign. So I usually do that for one of them. but you can tell there are teams that I'm pretty neutral about and teams that I don't like. And in the little player descriptions, there are sometimes some little Easter eggs where I am not overly nice. So it's not a highbrow situation at all times, certainly.
Yeah, how many times can you redesign the poop emoji?
There's that.
So have you done 2 for Leicester? I should have checked.
I'm behind at the minute.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing one of those things where I'm meant to be doing this big project. So I've put it off entirely by doing absolutely nothing. And I'm meant to be dissertating. I have a chapter that was due probably 2 weeks ago now that I'm allegedly going to finish up tonight. But with that and with the travel means I've fallen behind on the actual execution of the things. So how the process generally works is I have all of the information on a PDF document ahead of time that I've built. And often, like, obviously, if we're playing teams multiple times, I can reuse a lot of that information, just put it a little bit differently out there. And that just lets me do the lineups as quickly as possible. It does take me about that period of time between when the lineups drop and the match starting to actually fill in the player information once I have the pages out right, which is very helpful because it means I am pretty much never on Twitter when the lineup furor is going off. I just miss that entirely when I'm properly doing this, and that's been beneficial to my mental health and ability to not get into arguments that I don't need to get into online. When I'm not doing the little book, I get into a lot more arguments that I don't need to be getting into online. Being in Liverpool and drinking a bit more hasn't helped with that either.
Can't imagine why anyone would disagree with any of the lineups, but well, probably have had arguments on this show. So let's talk a bit about Leicester then, and I don't know if you've done the research and just how, but my sense is a lot of people's impression of Leicester has changed in a week, particularly Liverpool fans, after some of the nonsense chants that apparently they persisted with yesterday. We talked about them on the show we did last week. How's your framing of Leicester gone over the last couple of weeks?
I mean, the chanting is something that does unfortunately need to be in the center. I think it was absolutely incessant at the League Cup. I've heard Feed the Scousers chanted pretty much every game I've been to. You're not used to hearing it incessantly throughout the match over and over and over and over again, which on that occasion, I think really added to how good the atmosphere was on our end, chanting back at them basically and just being generally incensed. But in terms of the team and the squad and the approach, I find myself being a bit frustrated with the scheduling, to echo Jurgen Klopp, because though tactically probably they didn't necessarily deserve to beat us given the one shot on target. But Brendan Rodgers got exactly what he wanted to do. He rotated an entire team against Manchester City to be able to play full force against us, which was a choice and it came off. But it's disappointing, I think, in that City and Liverpool played the same team in a title race that is probably going to be quite close, but we didn't play the same team, which leads me to question the entire enterprise in a lot of ways. And I know we've benefited from this as well. We played Wolves right after City did in our title winning campaign, and the same with Sheffield United. So it is what it is, but it is a bit frustrating to see, I think.
Yeah. Well, we may get onto this as well, and it probably didn't help us either that the twins we talked about last week, Kavanagh and Tierney, ended up on what swapping roles with refereeing and VARing on the City game, and then of course City end up with 2 penalties. That probably didn't help us either. Let's get back to Leicester. Sorry, that's a whole tangent. So I'll let's hear from everyone else. I as I said, if I didn't say this on before we started recording, I'm still too close to the Leicester game to come up with a strong opinion about kind of how it went, but it just felt to me like we just didn't take our chances. And I went and did a Sean and looked at the XG, and sure enough, ours was 2.5 and theirs was 0.75, but we only had 4 shots on target out of 21.
Right, but all 4 of those shots on target were classified by Opta as big chances. Sorry, 3 of them were, because technically the Salah header hitting the frame doesn't get classed as a shot on target, but it's a penalty, which is a big chance.
Yep.
Mane's big chance. There's Jota heading wide, big chance, and then there's the Salah shot that Schmeichel makes a very quick save on, which is also classed as a big chance. We should have walked out of that first half up 2 or 3-0. Game should have been over at halftime. It wasn't. We got what we deserved for that. Everybody could sit there and try to point at different parts of the team that didn't work, right? And a lot of people are going to sit and have a go at the midfield, which wasn't good. But every so often, you have to stop focusing your lasers on the things that we take a step back. Everybody can basically take a loss and sit there and focus on a part of it that suits the agenda of how they think the team is working, which people will do because everybody has an agenda and everybody wants to prove for some reason about how watching sports makes them so much smarter than everybody else as a supporter or a fan, right? It doesn't. You're just a person with an opinion. But nobody wants to sit and blame Mo Salah for missing a penalty or Sadio Mane for missing a wide open chance when there's a perfectly good Jordan Henderson to flog for not tracking back. All 3 of them made huge mistakes, as did many other players in the side. The only player who actually really, the only players who really should leave yesterday's game with any sort of plaudits are maybe the center backs and probably Costas. Everybody else, kind of bad. And even us playing that badly, we still should have taken Leicester behind a woodshed. And we didn't. And that stinks.
It stinks.
Well, I think to paraphrase a Mariism here was Liverpool, and we do have the propensity for a team-wide swoon from time to time, and it just felt like yesterday was one of those. Justin was just talking about how not very many people covered themselves in glory. We're usually so footballingly verbose, and yesterday just felt very laconic. It was to try and put a more poetic, which wasn't that poetic, slant on it, because it really was a giant kick in the pills yesterday. Because any misstep when you're playing with City in the form that they seem to be perpetually in, it does feel like the sky is falling, and you see that a lot of people online. Twitter's a really toxic place to try and find hot takes, and as Justin was saying, it's like people need their narratives, and what galls me the most is that the narrative, it was plucky Leicester goes to the mat and comes away with all 3 points. It was plucky underdog type shit, and it's not. Like we should have handled them, and they get to now make that to create that narrative without saying, as it wasn't a Reds team that was at the races yesterday. And I think Klopp, I don't often listen to his post-match stuff just because I'm usually celebrating a win, but I listened to it and he was pretty blunt. He's like, we just weren't on it today. And he's like, there's a number of times that I can come away from a game and say, wow, about the way the boys play, and today was not one of those days.
Yeah.
So I've been a Liverpool fan for long enough to have seen this. And it was usually the old Liverpool where, again, what do we have? 67% of possession, 21 shots, 4 on goal, and they managed to get one. It was just like a brain fart down the right hand side of our park, and Lookman did really well. Like, I'm not going to take it away from him. Like, he came on, he was full of beans, and he just strode right down the right hand side of the park and buried it. And I agree with Justin. I don't think it's fair to take swings at, and I was one of them. I just, you got to win your battles, and I felt like some people weren't winning their individual battles, and it could be part of just the swoon. And oftentimes and I think Neil Atkinson says this all the time, is usually your mates are there to dig you out, and that point that for that particular portion of the game, like, no one was there to dig anyone else out, and they took their chance. So it just galls me the most that, like, the narrative now is that somehow we were we were best. We were, but like the better team, statistically speaking, lost. And I think anyone with eyes would tell you that we were the better team for large portions of that game. We move on to Sunday. Go ahead, Justin.
But I think it comes back to a point that people more widely don't want to necessarily, I think, intellectually connect with, which is you can do all the underlying stats analytics on a game. I love them. I actually use them a lot because I do think that they tell you a good bit about what a team is doing, what specific players are doing, and how they're contributing to the whole, because it is a low-scoring game. And event statistics don't necessarily tell you how the cohesiveness of one team playing against another works throughout an entire game, right? In this particular case, sometimes you're going to have games where you dominate the opposition, and you know what? Because it's a low-scoring sport, shit happens. That's what happened yesterday. That's all that was. There's no greater and like going back to your narratives, this goes back to my 90 minutes, live 90 minutes at a time kind of ethos. There are no greater narratives here. Two teams played. One team was significantly better, didn't take their chances. The other team got one chance, took it. That was the game yesterday. Nobody needs to really look further to abstract what this means about Leicester as a side. What does it mean about Liverpool as a side, right? No title is won from any 90 minutes of play, except, in a league. No titles won from any 90 minutes of play. No titles lost from an individual 90 minutes of play. Right? Not every single game needs to be a referendum on every single aspect of how the team works, how it's set up, what it did in the transfer market, right? Like people trying to impart all of those things into games are just, it's just the intellectual stubbornness of having to feel like you're right about something.
Boy, if that's what's going on Twitter, I'm sure glad I read my son's history book last night rather than listen to any of it. Because again, my takeaway was we just didn't take our chances, and the criticism that I did see during the game I felt was a little off, because I think that like I sort of criticism, someone was criticizing Van Dijk. I can't remember who that was, but I mean, I think essentially he was doing what he did a lot in 2019-20, which was he doesn't block the shots, he blocks a portion of the goal so that there's only one place you can shoot to win, to score a goal, and usually Alisson makes the save, and he just didn't yesterday, unfortunately.
You called me out, Paul. That was me.
Oh, what? Really? Okay. Yeah,
It
no.
was about Van Dijk not stepping to challenge Lookman as he was running through. But on the same token, I'm not going to sit there and slam Virgil van Dijk because that dude's awesome at football. And what would I gain from that?
No. So, Haitham, I'm sure you're dying to get a word in edgeways here.
Yeah. So for me, I don't know if you guys have seen John Oliver's appearance on The Men in Blazers. There was a line that just summarized my outlook on watching Liverpool matches. It's basically he enjoys just seeing good football, and he doesn't really much. To paraphrase what he said, he doesn't really care about the results, which is where I am, where I've been. I just enjoy football. I think I've mentioned this so many times in the past. But for me, there was, some lethargy, basically, I think, yesterday, just watching everyone. Passes were not completed as your typical Liverpool play. I don't know what it was, and I did not really enjoy. I enjoyed some of the match, but in general, it wasn't enjoyable to watch. Again, we have lost matches. We will continue to lose matches, but to me, it's mostly about how they play. And even if had they had like a pretty good match, nice passing. I know people or teams park the bus and all of that stuff. I get that, and sometimes we don't end up scoring. But to me, like I said, it's just part of the match we're not, or parts of the match were not enjoyable to watch. The other point that I want to talk about or just mention is I think Robo's absence was noticeable yesterday. Costas had a good game, but just the speed was not there. Robo's speed was not there. So that's something that I kind of noticed too. Not that Costas was not up to par or anything, but I felt like if Robo was there, some of those crosses, just his speed would have added to the overall play of our team. But again, just in general, I'm fine. It took me watching the whole 7th season of Game of Thrones to get over it. So I've binge
That was
watched.
worse.
Yeah. So yeah, it's fine. Everything's fine.
So Mari, we'll leave the last
I'm
word
over
on
it.
the Leicester game to you. What are your sort of final thoughts?
So I think for me, this game was really interesting for game management and a bit of luck. Because I would actually break it down more than just a 90-minute chunk. I thought that first half was quite fun to watch. I thought we were incredibly dominating. There was a long period of that match where Leicester quite literally could not put a few passes together because we were doing what we were meant to be doing, which very often this year is making it really hard for other teams to play wherever we're playing. Second balls are all ours. You don't have a minute's piece to sit and make decisions. When Salah missed his penalty, it did not immediately feel like, oh, it's going to be one of them days. It was more of a, I suppose he's due to miss one. It's been a while, sort of thing. And the problem, I mean, we made the chances. I remember very specifically in that first half, when I was trying to criticize people, I would say Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain hasn't really offered us enough going forward, but that means he's going to set up a goal right now. And quite literally, as I was saying that sentence, he put that ball forward for Jordan Henderson. That very easily on another day could have just been slightly headed past Schmeichel. If it were not Jordan Henderson, it probably would have been. No offense to Jordan, but he's not the player I necessarily want through on goal in that sort of situation. So yeah, the first half did not feel like it was going poorly, but the problem with it was when we miss all of our chances and we have players coming back into fitness or trying to be played into a rhythm, we do need to be up by 60 because that game is entirely different once you take Fabinho off, just purely in terms of the spaces that they get going forward. And it's an entirely different game if James Milner comes on and is defending a lead versus chasing a game. And especially once Leicester goes up, the disjointedness of our midfield, I think, becomes more and more clear. I think it was really unfortunate that we didn't get the version of Naby Keita that we got against Leicester a week ago. If we had that Naby Keita, it might have been an entirely different game. But, it is what it is. It can't always be perfect. That second half was incredibly frustrating to watch, especially because when Lookman's goal went in, it felt like of course it has. Just of course it has. It is now one of them days. Don't know what to do after that often. I think there are a lot of really quick reactions in terms of like, that's it, the season's over, that sort of thing. And I'm not one of those people. I'm never going to be. I'm an eternal optimist until I'm absolutely not allowed to be. But what I will say is it is really frustrating when you do have to rely a lot on other sides slipping up, as well as wanting your side to go and be perfect for 5 months. I don't think it's normal for any league title campaign to want perfection. And that's just something that we've been living through with this Klopp side and Guardiola side. But I in no way think that the season's over. I think City has been very, very lucky with things like COVID issues, injuries, things like that. And I don't think it's necessarily true that they're going to be lucky for the entire season. So I'm still hopeful, even though that was not at all what I wanted to do with my, Tuesday night? I don't know the days in this period of time. It's not what you wanted to do, but I don't think, as we sort of started with saying, I don't think it's anything serious. I don't think it's something that we can make broad pronouncements about the state of the team or anything like that. It's just one of them.
It's a really awesome summary and a nice pivot to I think where we'll go next, which is kind of how are we feeling about kind of the rest of the season? I think, did you share this, Daz, that Andrew Beasley tweeted that on City's current form, we're going to have to win 17 and draw 2 for the rest of the season just to tie it up with them. I'll go to you, Daz, because I think it was your comment.
I love Andrew Beasley, but this has felt very fatalistic.
It does.
I'm in Mari's camp, honestly. I think we've lost 2 games all season. I think what hurt us the most were the drop points at Brentford and Brighton from winning positions. I think those will come back to haunt us more than those 2 losses. But this isn't Football Manager. You can't just skip your way through games. That's why we play the game, right? That's why Leicester played yesterday. Like they got tonked 6-3 and then came back and beat us. And it's again, like Twitter is such a toxic place. And you have your top reds talking about, well, that's it. And Justin was intimating, we'll talk about this later on as well, is just how people so quickly pivot. I always say it's like people eat their children at the first sign of a missed meal. I think that's basically what a lot of people do, is like they look to pull apart and woe is me and self-flagellate over the state of a team that's lost one game, was lost 2 all season in the league, and we stumbled. That's really what it was. And I think I said earlier, the problem is the stakes are so high that a stumble looks like you've gone off the edge of a cliff, and I think that's what too many people are vibing off of. And I was struggling in the moment to live Justin's ethos of just enjoy 90 minutes, and I had to go home and consult the grape oracle for the rest of the evening, and it worked. I woke up this morning and with a slightly fuzzy head, but I felt a lot better. And sometimes you just need a bit of separation from social media and from the abject muppetry that goes on in it to realize, like, this too shall pass, man. And I think Mari's right. I think City will make a misstep. It just makes our game against them. When is it? 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now? We play them we play them when did we play them?
Towards the end of the season.
Play them in April.
Season.
It's an April game.
April.
Yeah, that makes it even juicier, right?
Okay.
So we play again Sunday against Chelsea, and one thing I can guarantee you, as the sun rises and sets every day, that you will not see that performance again on Sunday. Jurgen Klopp is going to have those boys on the training ground, and I can't imagine a better coach to have after a loss like that. Just the way that he talks, and who is as your wife was saying, he's such a breath of fresh air in all aspects of life. And the fact that and I'm really tangenting here, but the fact that he's the one that keeps taking pelters when he talks about how this league congestion is screwing not just his team, but all other teams. Everyone's like, I stopped the moan. Brendan Rodgers mentions it. Pep Guardiola's mentioned it. Thomas Tuchel, in his very angry broomstick riding way, is deriding the league too. And no one says anything about it. But anyway, back to Klopp. I have a feeling that Sunday will be, it's almost like we had to get this out of the way. And I wonder if, like, the way that we played yesterday was a result of the high of the way we played on Thursday, because we'll come to talk about this later. But I have to say that Thursday's game was one of my favorite moments of the calendar 2020 Part 2 year. So I don't know, like, I'm interested to hear what you guys think about it too, but I don't think it's far from over.
Yeah. What is true though is that a lot of the people who played yesterday hadn't played for quite a long time. So there was likely to be a disruption in rhythm. And they do say, at least I've heard this, that Liverpool's optimal gap between games is 5 days, which should set us up nicely for Sunday. Justin, go to you. Where are you now?
I'm the same place. I'm the same place I'm always going to be, which is I won't call a season dead until it's mathematically dead. There's a few things that I want to understand. And some of this might offend someone, but I don't care. I want to understand what privileged position people have in life as to where Liverpool losing a game is the worst thing that can happen to them. Because that's what it comes across as to me. That, like the world is full of awful things, and the worst thing that can happen to you is Liverpool losing a game. Cool, great. I'm very happy for you that that's the worst thing that can happen to you, but like realistically, grow up. Mm-hmm. It is. I recognize that there are bigger ties sometimes within sport than just, you win or you lose. And, I run a supporters club. I get all of this. On the same token, you're going to lose individual games in your life. How you react to losses is actually a reflection on your character. And sitting there and just giving up after you lose is actually a terrible reflection on your personal character. It is. You should try again. I'm glad that Klopp, and I'm glad that the players don't have that kind of attitude, which they've never shown, because this is a team that actually consistently overcomes adversity and goes on to use it as fuel to actually succeed. But there's 57 of 114 points left to play for, and it's a 6-point gap, which is 2 games. You just need a better result. You need to do better than them by 2 games in the second half of the season, which they've done to you in the first half of the season. And over the past few seasons, you've had half seasons where you've outperformed them by 6 points. So giving up at this point is illogical. There's a lot to play for. And I think if you're just like, I think that if you're, searching for the first off-ramp at the point of adversity, you're just, selling yourself short. I don't want to sit there and try to say that you're, cast aspersions about what everybody else does in their life, even though I did that 5 minutes ago. But yeah, there's no reason to give up. It's not even January. We haven't hit the 2022 portion of the 21-22 season.
So it certainly sounds like.
Quick question. What did you have for breakfast, and did it involve beans and vinegar?
It was a lot of coffee.
Can I have some of it?
Sure.
So it certainly sounds like you need to unfollow some people if you haven't already.
I already have. It's just that everybody's so toxic. It's like, oh, there's the league gone. Like, there's people tweeting at 65 minutes or in some group chats I'm in. Well, there's the league gone. 65 minutes into a game that's not even ended. What's the point of that? Like, why even watch sports if you're not going to enjoy it? That's really my my real point here. Why watch something that's going to make you miserable?
Well, the other thing is, even if you are really upset about the league, then there's still a Champions League as well that's still out there. So the season isn't actually.
There's a League Cup. There's the FA Cup. We are in 4 competitions.
Oh, yeah,
we are still in all 4 competitions.
Uh-huh.
I mean, plenty of teams are playing for nothing. And when we accepted that we're going to let this leisure activity dictate how we feel over days, months, and what have you, we want it to have meaning. We could be just Everton watching shit losses that don't actually mean anything. At least our quite deep sadness here and frustration, because we should have got more out of that game and we didn't. But we can't really afford to do that bit of sadness without putting it into the context of it sucks because we're playing for something. And we're still playing for something, even though that was really frustrating. But Chelsea just had a number of those really frustrating games. And it's quite possible that City will also have a number of those really frustrating games. They got beat by Norwich a few years ago when we walked to the title, right? Yeah. It's worth holding on to the high points as well as the low points is all I'm saying. And being grateful that we are dead upset, because we could just be vaguely upset and it could be all meaningless. So enjoy the horrible times while we have them, I suppose.
So I'm reminded of the Klopp, what does he Klopp call football? The most important of the least important things. That's always, I think actually John Oliver in the aforementioned Men in Blazers actually quoted him saying that yesterday. One of the things that I thought was really funny on, if you get a chance, if you hadn't seen that, Roger Bennett described that after the derby, Liverpool and Everton fans were united on one thing, which is Everton are crap, which I thought was worth sharing. So, Haitham, given you brought up Men in Blazers, where are you? Hopefully, you haven't been looking at all those kind of angry give up people on Twitter, and your Game of Thrones experiences kind of got you with a much more modified sense of
that was pretty much my reasoning for binge watching Game of Thrones yesterday. And in general, I tend to stay away from Twitter like an hour before a match and a few hours after it. So it was like a second nature to me. Yeah, I'm fine. And just going back to what all of you have been talking about, City has lost 2 games just as we did. We just drew a couple more, and all what it takes is an injury here or there. They've gone through it. We've gone through it. Chelsea went through it recently. It's football. Just like anything else, it's not constant. We're not dealing with the Matrix here, although I watched the new Matrix this past weekend. So it's not like everything is scripted and it's just going to go one way or another. It's just everything is up in there. I'm not worried. I'm still going to enjoy watching matches, and like I mentioned earlier. And yeah, I mean, I have I feel fine about it, actually. Like I said, I'm over it.
I feel fine just listening to you say I feel fine about it. Actually, that makes me feel a lot better. I'm conscious of the time.
Making it all better for me.
Yeah. What's that?
That hat is making it all better for me.
Yeah.
Smoothest dude on the chat right now.
I'm so glad that this goes up on YouTube.
And if you are listening, as usual, go look for sort of fashion tips on the YouTube video.
Good question. Which color pill did Neo take?
Red pill.
Oh, he took the red pill. Yeah,
That's what's up.
Yeah.
I don't know that you want to go down that path, Daz, because
He wins.
being red pilled is a term used by extreme far right political commentators on Twitter.
Let me have this.
The truth of the exploitative world of government.
Oh, can I not just have this?
Wow.
No more coffee for you today.
That's right. A couple of big tangents we've taken here. I'm conscious of the time, and I want to get back to one thing which we said we would talk about on the last show, which was highlights of what you described as 2020 part 2. I think we had a few different things that sort of came up, but Mario, I'll start with you. If you're looking back on 2021, what are the things that for you really stood out about the Reds?
Well, I mean, Wednesday night or Thursday night, Leicester in the League Cup is up there. I know I already talked about it, but that was very much bucket list for me. I don't generally get in for Champions League matches. So I didn't think I would quite get an atmosphere like that until I started going to Champions League matches. And that was just delightful because I came in a really bad headspace. And so that first half really felt like it was just going to be the worst possible night. And then it turned into one of the best ones. And that's great. The week before I got to sing Merry Christmas Everton in Anfield, which was also a delightful turn of events. I don't think I could go wrong by mentioning the Alisson header, because even Klopp is still mentioning the Alisson header, and we should never forget that happened to us, football miracles on a weekly basis. But I do think as a whole, last season was terrible, but the mentality to get us out of that hole and carry us to the finish line is something that I really do value, because God, it was a slog through part of that. Through large parts of that. But we don't follow a team that just gives up, and that might be worth valuing and remembering, especially in these smaller disappointing moments that we find ourselves in right now.
Lovely. Daz, 2021.
I think Mario stole pretty much all of mine. Actually, the one that it came up a couple of weeks ago. I love what the club does around like the social outreach type of stuff, or like the side stories that they have. And I think that Nivea did one with the guy that I think he donated. It was a kidney.
Omaro.
Save that young girl's life.
Yeah.
I'm just getting weepy just thinking about it now. That just made me like super proud to be a Liverpool supporter. I don't know. He's just some random dude that decided to do the right thing, and he happened to be a Liverpool supporter. But like that really made my day. Actually, because I was like, Mario's in kind of a bad headspace, and I saw that, and I was like, there's so much more beauty and bigger things to spend your time obsessing about or worrying about, just to see like that small glimmer of humanity in the cesspool that we kind of waiting around in for large parts. So that was a real highlight for me.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that, that's definitely worth looking out for. Ethan is the guy's name.
Mm.
And he finishes it by being completely selfless, by turning to the girl, I think her name's Libby, and saying, "That Alison Becker, what a wonderful guy." And the point was not about Alison Becker, of course, of the story. But anyway, wonderful stuff. Justin, please tell me you have some real positives to share with about 2021.
There definitely are some. I think one that you have to point to is the fact that we went into Old Trafford and completely pantsed them, 5-0. That's always that was a joy. Watching Mo Salah basically just show Ronaldo. I was about to call him Romario. I actually like Romario. Showing Ronaldo who the big boy striker in the league was pleasant. Seeing about 5,000 Mad Scousers singing "Ole's at the Wheel" for an hour in an open stadium, in an empty stadium, was also pleasant. Seeing Manchester United supporters leave Old Trafford was pleasant. So like that was one of my high points of the year. And the other one is going to be a player who hasn't really gotten much run in the side this year, this season. Finished it out with us really strongly last season, and is probably going to be gone come January. But seeing Nat Phillips rescue an actual Premier League career, or what looks like it should be, it's nice to see, because that's a player who was written off, was called championship caliber, and never really gave up on his dreams. And you know what? He's going to have a Premier League career, and he's going to do it on the back of actually being instrumental in pushing Liverpool into the Champions League, which could have been catastrophic for us if we weren't there, because playing on Thursday nights, we wouldn't be able to sustain a league challenge. So, just seeing Nat's end of last season was really, really pleasant. And you do want to see stories like that, where guys who were written off ultimately come back in and, do things that both help themselves and help their team.
He's been tattooed on some supporter's body too. You seen that one? Him heading the brick?
Yeah, I don't think you need to get a tattoo of Nat Phillips to do that. Just head a brick yourself and just be like, it's inspired by him.
Compared in some level with Robert Lewandowski by Klopp, I think at one point in recent weeks, Nat Phillips.
Push that price tag up.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I do want to go back though. You all know I'm from Liverpool. The team that I've hated all of my life, Manchester United, to beat them 5-0 in their own ground, that cannot be understated as to what a gift that was. Yes. Haitham, 2021.
2021, what a year. So for me, I agree with most of what has been said so far, if not all of it. However, in general, it was the return of the long-term injuries, specifically Verge. For me, Verge is not just about, he can pass the ball and he scores and all of that stuff. That's not what it's about. It's just him as a person and what he brings not only to us fans, but to his teammates and to the club. And just he's such a presence, cheerful presence. He's a jokester. And even, you know, Daz, you shared his little Hollywood or whatever it was cameo, and it was hilarious. And that's what Verge brings. It's just his spirit is just it's on another level to me. It's a person that I tend to look for things that he does, you know, online. He's sharing. It's just a funny person, and above all, just the sense of spirit of camaraderie that he brings to everything. So that was the highlight. Watching him come back playing in that preseason match for the first time was really a huge highlight for me this year.
You know, I know he's a good actor. He acted like someone could actually knock him down.
Yeah.
Not a bad shout in there. And we didn't even touch on Divok's 94th minute winner at Wolves or Salah's 15 goals. Because I guess we've given a lot of our time to Salah. We should probably wrap it up there. Marie, thank you so much for joining us today. It was wonderful to have your insights. Again, who are you writing for now? I didn't quite catch that at the beginning.
They're the Liverpool Offside.
Liverpool Offside. Okay, got that. And you're on Twitter. We'll make sure we put that handle in. Well, I guess this is the last show we're doing in 2021. So happy New Year to all of our hundreds of listeners. Thanks, Daz. Thanks, Justin. Thanks, Haitham. Hope you have, well, final thing to say. If you don't follow us already, follow us on Twitter. We will retweet stuff that we find reputable, and we won't be retweeting any of that stuff that Justin is getting so upset about. So we'll leave it there. Thanks so much, everyone.